Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are and whenever you are choosing to engage with this message, I am pleased that you have chosen to listen. Now, many of you from our local community will have heard the dreadfully sad news that Stephen Linham died last weekend from COVID-19. Stephen's mum, Gaynor, is a much valued member of our church family, and you will see his name included on our weekly signpost for our ongoing prayers. Please do be praying for Stephen's family, his wife and children and all who loved him, and for all who are grieving the loss of loved ones at this time. Please remember each time you see the updated numbers on the news that each number represents a person. And around that person are family and friends who are suffering profound loss. Gaynor and family, we are so dreadfully sorry for the loss of Stephen. None of us can fully understand what this time is like for you and your family. As your church family, we are praying for you. We love you, and we will do our very best to stand alongside you at this time. It is so hard to know what to say after sharing such sad news with you all. I'm reminded that for me, church at its absolute best is like an extension of our family. We share in one another's burdens and celebrate one another's joys. So at this time, as a church locally and more widely, I believe we are called to mourn with those who mourn. Over recent weeks, we've been given the opportunity to think carefully about who we are as people and who we are as a nation. Throughout this time of lockdown, we have faced the question, am I prepared to put others before myself? Or do I value my freedom more greatly than the lives of others? This weekend, as we marked VE Day on Friday, without the church services or the bells, in our homes and on our doorsteps, with socially distanced street parties, and perhaps most remarkably of all, the sun shining on a bank holiday. We were reminded that generations before us put others before themselves in order to gain for future generations the freedom we today are longing to return to. But as the Queen said as she addressed the nation at 9 p.m. on May the 8th, the same time her father had addressed the people in 1945, our streets are not empty. They are filled with the love and the care that we have for each other. Our streets are not empty. They are filled with the love and the care that we have for each other. What a beautiful image to hold on to right now. Generally in these talks, I've concentrated on the Gospel readings for each week. But I believe the New Testament readings set for today from the first letter of Peter, chapter 2, verses 2 to 10, address very aptly the question of who we are and how we might be recognised. So here is that reading for you. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow into salvation, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is good. Come to him, a living stone, though rejected by mortals, yet chosen and precious in God's sight. And like living stones, let yourselves be built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For it stands in Scripture, "See, I am laying in Zion a stone, a cornerstone, chosen and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame." To you then who believe, he is precious. But for those who do not believe, the stone that the builders rejected has become the very head of the corner, and a stone that makes them stumble, and a rock that makes them fall. They stumble because they disobey the word, as they were destined to do. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvellous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. In this passage, we are reminded that it is important that followers of Jesus go on to maturity, just as infants progress from milk to solid food. We have currently just passed the stage of weaning Phoebe from milk to solids. If you've ever been involved in the task of weaning, then you will know that it can be quite an exciting time, especially if you embrace baby-led weaning, where you let the child choose which foods to eat by putting them all on their tray. You never quite know where the food is going to go. And you get to see the facial expression of a child as they experience a first taste, and as they discover what they like and dislike. Although their likes and dislikes are inconsistent. One day they can despise a particular food type, only to demand and devour it the next. But more significantly, just as it is important for a baby to progress from milk to solids for their healthy physical development, so it is important for a believer to progress for their spiritual development. This means that we might encounter a view or perspective that we have not encountered before. We may be challenged. We may need to adjust our thinking. We may not like it. But it is part of our spiritual growth, and it is healthy. The passage continues to explore the privileges of being the people of God, developing the image of believers as stones being built into a house. The Christian life is meant to be corporate rather than individual. These stones, you and I, and those of the Christian faith that have gone before us, are being laid upon an absolutely solid and dependable foundation or cornerstone, Jesus Christ. The cornerstone is the first stone to be laid when a new building is constructed. It not only forms the base, but also orients how the rest of the stones will be arranged. In essence, the cornerstone shapes the direction and the structure of the whole building. Jesus is the living cornerstone, the foundational orienting rock upon which the church is built. The structure and direction of the church, our structure and direction, is determined by him. At a time when our church buildings are unavailable for very good reasons, it is a fantastic reminder that when Jesus said that he would tear down and rebuild the temple, he was not referring to a physical building. While our buildings are important, they should not be our main focus. They are part of how we communicate the good news of the gospel. Our buildings are not themselves the good news. Jesus is building his church alongside us, the people of God, and as the living cornerstone, he continues to direct his church today. This is who we are as Christians, the church of Jesus Christ. The passage closes with some tremendously powerful words. You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvellous light. I think that rather than seeing these words as a way of separating people of the Christian faith from others, they can more effectively be read as how people will recognise us as disciples of Christ. We are chosen by God, followers in a priestly line, made holy through our relationship with God, a people God knows. I love that wording in the NRSV, God's own people. In order to proclaim the mighty acts of God. That last bit, that's the important bit. This is all about God. It is not about us. The ultimate reason for the church is to proclaim God's marvellous light. We act as signposts, pointers towards God, and we allow others to recognise God at work in the world. So let's seek to be God's own people, proclaiming his marvellous light in the darkest of places this week. Amen.